You know how it goes with bands, some burn out, others just fade away, and then there are the New York Dolls. They were a band that just exploded like a firework and left this chaotic, beautiful, and unbelievably influential trail across the next 40 years of music history.
But here's the thing you have to understand right from the start. Their story is also a tragedy, a stark, unavoidable one. By early 2025, every single member of the band's classic lineup was gone.
And this is who they were in 1973. Just look at them, a vibrant, defiant, absolute explosion of life. So what in the world happened? How did this group of rock and roll outsiders end up with such a legendary and tragic story?
Yeah, the tragedy, it started early and it just never really stopped. From their original drummer, Billy Murcia, back in '72, all the way to frontman David Johansen in 2025. It's a really sad and shocking timeline. But to really get why they matter so much, we have to go back to the very beginning. Okay, so picture this. New York City, 1971. The Dolls just crash onto the scene, and they look and sound like absolutely nothing else. They weren't just a band, they were a statement, and for the mainstream music world, a really, really scary one.
Photographer Bob Gruen, who was there for all of it, he put it perfectly. The establishment was, and I'm quoting him here, petrified. This wasn't just about fun fashion choices. This felt genuinely dangerous to people. Their whole look was seen as a threat. So what was this look? Well, it was this glorious mess that people started calling gutter chic. We're talking high heels, spandex, teased-out hair, platform boots, even dresses. They were taking stuff from drag culture and glam rock, but making it way grittier, dirtier, and completely their own. And their sound, just as revolutionary. It was this raw, aggressive mix. Imagine the swagger of the Rolling Stones, the pure noise of the Stooges, and the catchy pop hooks of 60s girl groups all thrown into a blender. They were basically creating proto-punk. It was punk rock before anyone even came up with the name punk rock. Now here's the crazy part. For all this talk about influence, their entire classic period was incredibly short. They only released 2 studio albums. Just 2. But those 2 records would basically become the blueprints for whole genres of music. And they caused total confusion right away. Their first album in 1973 was so divisive that the readers of Cream magazine have voted them both the best and worst new group of the year. I mean, how does that even happen? Even when their second album got great reviews, nobody bought it. The world just wasn't ready. The music establishment was often openly hostile. On this really influential BBC show, the host, Bob Harris, famously just dismissed them on air as mock rock. He was basically saying they were a bad copy of the Rolling Stones. Doors were just being slammed in their faces left and right. So when you're getting slammed from the outside and failing commercially, what happens? Well, usually things start to rot from the inside. And for the Dolls, that meant drugs, alcohol, and massive infighting were just tearing them apart. And this all led to this disastrous final chapter. They hire a new manager, a guy named Malcolm McLaren, in a last-ditch effort to save things. And his big idea? Rebrand them with cheap political shock value. He dressed them all in red leather and had them play in front of a giant communist flag. It was this shallow gimmick that had nothing to do with their music, and it totally backfired. After one awful tour, Johnny Thunders and Jerry Nolan quit, and by 1976, it was all over. But here's where the story gets really interesting, because the band's failure in the 70s has absolutely nothing to do with their actual importance. Their collapse was basically the starting gun for their real legacy. Their influence pretty much split down 2 totally different roads. Their raw, sloppy, energetic sound became the direct template for punk rock. But their androgynous makeup and spandex look, that became the absolute blueprint for 80s glam metal. They accidentally created 2 massive and kinda opposite rock movements. I mean, just look at this. You've got the New York Dolls on the left and the Sex Pistols a few years later on the right. The attitude, the sneer, that raw energy. You can draw a straight line between them. And it's no coincidence. That manager, Malcolm McLaren, he went right from the Dolls to managing the Sex Pistols. He was basically testing out his ideas on the Dolls first. Okay, now let's look at their other legacy. On the left, the Dolls again. On the right, a band like Motley Crue. The teased hair, the makeup, the flamboyant style, it's all there. The entire aesthetic of the 80s Sunset Strip was basically born out of the Dolls' gutter chic. And the list of bands they inspired is just staggering. It cuts across every genre you can think of. You've got the UK punks, American arena rock like Kiss and Aerosmith. You've got sensitive indie bands like the Smiths and REM. And of course, the glam metal giants like Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses. All of them owe a massive debt to the dolls. And this brings us to the central question of their whole legacy, right? How could a band that was, by pretty much every commercial measure, a total failure, have such a profound and lasting impact on music?
Well, maybe music historian Hank Bordowitz put it best. He called them the most important band that most people never heard. They weren't a hit factory. They were a catalyst. More than a sound, they were an idea. They gave permission for the next generation of artists to be loud and messy and glamorous and defiant, ensuring their chaotic sound would echo for decades, long after they were all gone.